Hey y'all, we're SunSquabi. We're here with Vinyl Voices. Thanks for having us. It started as kind of a side project out of a 10-piece hip hop group. And I had started to get into STS9 at the time, which I think was a really big influence in switching into this style of music. Initially, it was me and a bass player, Andrew, back in Boulder. And then Chris Anderson joined the band after that. We toured as that unit for a couple of years. And at that point, about 5 years into it, it was 2016, Josh joined the band as the bass player. And so we've been playing the music together almost 10 years now. Prior to that, Josh is a great recording engineer and was recording us in the studio for that. So we needed a bass player, and Josh hopped in the van. So fast forward many awesome years of traveling around the country as a three-piece with Chris. The original drummer had a kid and decided to focus more on the family life, which is about 2 years ago where Scotty Zwang hops in. Scotty is a monster and has played with a million different bands.
He's good at drums.
It's an accurate figure. He's a great drummer, and we had a bunch of mutual friends. Scotty actually lives with my old roommate in Denver now. So it's a tight world in the musical world in Denver, and Scotty stepped in about 2 years ago, and we've been having a great time since then. We recorded and released our first album, the SunSquabi's self-titled LP, last year, with Scotty on it. And
we did the EPs too, so we got like 20 songs.
Yeah, we did 2 4-track EPs prior to that, which was an incredible experience just to have this guy jump in, and we were so fluid in the studio and just creating a bunch over those 2 years. So that's kind of the summarized version of it, I would say, since 2011. So a lot of things have happened, but we were having a good time out here.
Yeah, I mean, when I came in, the first thing we did was like I learned all the old songs and we did that, but we like started writing music pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely.
So like it's definitely gonna change anytime you only have a couple people making the music. And then I came in, so it definitely musically changed a little bit. I think Kevin's voice is still really strong in the music, but there was definitely like a huge change when we dropped the Moog in.
Yeah, Josh incorporating the Moog and the MIDI synths.
Oh yeah,
we're able to like toss the bass lines back and forth a lot more, and like Josh was saying, we just had a really clear chemistry right off the bat, and we would hang out and come out of the studio with 4 or 5 songs in a day, you know. So yeah, we just like to have fun, man. I don't know.
Yeah, and like live, that Moog is hitting the subs and sounding. It's like when you use a synth bass instead of a bass guitar, it just hits different, and it has a different impact. And so I think as an observer, it's like it really changes the dynamic compared to having just the bass guitar the whole time.
telling a story through a jam is what we all really, you know, listening to like jazz fusion growing up and stuff like that, jazz fusion, progressive rock, you know what I mean? And then you have Pretty Lights comes along and Rat Attack comes along, and kind of blending that style of like instrumental storytelling with a hip hop kind of context is what led us into what we're doing now. So I think there's a massive avenue for it. And I think, you know, people come to it from different kinds of backgrounds and different musical interests, but we are doing all of it. So
I think it's also just like the freedom of improvisation, and that you get to explore all the avenues. And like you were saying, like, you know, versus like people in the recording industry that rely a little bit more on selling their music and albums, however that platform may be, whether it's from downloads or physical vinyl, or I don't know if CDs really exist anymore.
right.
But to have that freedom, and what comes with bands like Galactic, and, you know, even later on Pretty Lights, where like a lot of them are basing their careers off of a live touring music scene, which the jam band scene kind of gets lumped into in a big way. But really, I think the main focus is the emphasis of playing shows and getting out there and making it different and interesting, not only for the audience, but for ourselves,
Yeah.
so that we don't get too bored or locked into one idea.
Yeah, but if you want to buy our new record, that would help us play more shows.
That helps us keep coming and play shows. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's really about the live shows and coming to see you guys all over the place. We get to do it a little bit differently every single time, and you're just there present in the moment. So to experience that, you come to the show, and that's kind of what we're about. I mean, in the long term, I think that we really see where this can go, and every time we write a new song or a new record, kind of breaks these boundaries of what we thought we were capable of. So this most recent album we put out in May, we started working on last year in 2024. It took about 8 or 9 months to put it together. But for me personally, it was like a really hard time, and channeling a lot of that energy into music to share with people. You know, I think you channel your life experience into what the story is that you're trying to tell people. So we're working on new music right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you exactly when that's going to come out, but the story is always evolving, and you take in your life experience and translate that into energy and sound, and that's what we're here to do.
in general, festivals are awesome because everyone is there with an open mind to just experience music. And maybe they're there to see an act or two, but that's only a couple hours of their entire weekend. So it's just a huge crowd of open-minded people who are there to have fun and like appreciate music, which is awesome.
Yeah, that love and energy between, you know, playing a venue for a few hundred or so people versus, you know, playing a festival for a few to like 10,000 people. Like, they can both have like a very similar feeling depending on, it's kind of hard to like label exact. It goes kind of
like
from night
you
to
do
night.
you do a 300 person room with 300 people who love your band. That can easily match the energy of 20,000 people that are like, this is pretty sweet. You know, I think I like these guys. What is it, SunSquabi's? Like, what? You know, they might not even know. But then sometimes we get to play festivals in places where we're like more well known, and it's like, wow, this is a really big show, and the energy is there. So I love club shows and festival shows. I think they can both have awesome vibes.
It's that feedback loop at the end of the day of like
crowd,
what we're getting from the crowd or what they're getting from us and vice versa, and it just kind of feeding off of each other in this way that it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And I do think it can change from venue to venue, whether that's a smaller venue for a couple hundred people versus, you know, a big festival for 10, 20,000 people.
I mean, I would agree with both these guys. Like, if you close your eyes, you're in the same place. If you really feel it the same way, it can be a very similar energy. But at the same time, when you're in a room like we're at tonight in Houston, where you can look out in the crowd and visibly see everyone's face, I think there's an exchange of energy there in an inside intimate venue versus a massive crowd that you can't see the back of. You feel that more. Whereas like you can truly look out and see everyone in a club. So when we're improvising, like we were talking about before, you might, I wouldn't say like take risks the same way, but the risk you're going to take is going to be different. You know what I mean? But we've definitely thrown some weird samples out and done some different stuff, like in both scenarios, where whether it's 20,000 people or 200 people, you know, we're going to have that same chemistry and throw it out there. So
I do like the production. Like, we have a really talented crew, and when you get to play a festival and you have the huge PA that goes all the way down and all the way up,
200 lights,
and you have the production where like they get to shine, and they're like, I've been doing this and now I finally have the dream rig. There is an element of that where the show is bigger and has that visual and audio impact that sometimes you don't get at a smaller show, which is really cool. And I think just allowing those people to shine a little bit more adds to it for sure.
Thank y'all so much. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself. The only thing that can stop you from doing what you want to do is making that choice. If you choose every day to make something happen, you can make it happen. And that's, if we had one message behind our music with no words, it's that, is you got to believe in yourself.
Yeah, I think positivity, inspiration normally
Yeah.
come to mind.
Maybe a little bit of release. Like we have some heavier music, and like some people might think it's kind of angst or like anger, but it's more like a release, like letting it out a little bit, you know, like
Accept it, yeah.
and like so when you're rocking out, it's okay to like have some feelings and like let it out. And then there's like some funky stuff which just feels good, and some, you know, so there's different emotions, but I think just the fans connecting and feeling something and taking something away from it is probably the most important.
I think that's the beauty of all art,
Yeah.
is that, you know, ultimately, like, it might offend, not ours specifically, but like art can definitely cause a negative response to someone, but at the end of the day, like, it's not hurting anyone, and it's just your form of expressing yourself. So I think if you can connect to that on any sort of level, that's a good thing. And it's definitely good for us to, as an outlet, to kind of just let it all out, whether that is a negative experience that we've had and turning that into a positive experience through music, or, you know, being inspired through positivity and being able to express that in our own way.
SunSquabi.com has got everything on it, but we've got music on Spotify, Bandcamp, SoundCloud, all the origins, Apple Music.
Yeah, everywhere.
Over the next 5-6 months, we're going to be touring all over the country. In the short term, we'll be out on the West Coast in December. We'll be all over the place next year. And yeah, we're working on new music, and you can find us there.